Pike Place Market is never truly empty, even after the last tourists drift away, after the vendors pull down their metal shutters and pack up, after the neon signs flicker off one by one. The market keeps breathing. The floors creak, the pipes hum, the old wooden beams settle like tired bones, and somewhere, deep in the lower levels, something shifts in the dark. You step through the main entrance long after closing. The air is cool and smells faintly of salt, old wood, and the last traces of produce that didn't sell today. The fluorescent lights overhead buzz softly, casting long shadows across the empty stalls. Your footsteps echo as you walk past the fish counter, the one that's usually surrounded by crowds and cameras. Tonight, it's quiet. The ice beds are empty, the counters are wiped clean. But as you pass, you hear it. A soft splash. There's a single drop of water hitting the metal tray, except there's no water dripping. You keep walking. The hallway narrows as you head toward the down under, the lower levels where the air grows colder and the lights dim. The market feels different down here. Older, closer to whatever used to be before the tourists and the postcards. You reach the bottom of the stairs and pause. Something moves at the far end of the hallway. Not a person, too quick for that. Just a flicker of motion, like a shadow slipping around a corner. You take a step forward, then another. The air shifts. A cold draft brushes past your arm, and from somewhere behind you, in the empty stairwell you just descended, you hear a soft, unmistakable sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming down the stairs. You turn around. There's no one there. Just the dim light, the creaking wood, and the feeling that the market is watching you, waiting. Welcome back to Haunts of the Pacific Northwest, and welcome to Season 2. Tonight we're starting in a place that doesn't need an introduction. Not really. Pike Place Market is one of Seattle's beating hearts. A maze of stalls, stairways, hidden hallways, and underground levels that feel like they were built on top of older stories. Because they were. During the day, the market is alive, loud, crowded, overflowing with color and noise. But after hours, when the vendors have gone home and the lights dim, the market becomes something else entirely. The history feels closer, the shadows feel heavier, and the building itself seems to breathe in a way you can't hear when the crowds are here. This is a place where thousands of people pass through every day, but not everyone leaves. Some stories stay behind, some footsteps echo long after closing, and some figures still move through the lower levels, even when the market is supposed to be empty. Tonight, we're stepping into the market's past and the things that still linger in its quiet corner. Pike Place Market opened in 1907, but the story starts earlier, with frustration, anger, and a city growing faster than anyone could control. Seattle's population was exploding. Middlemen controlled food prices, and they weren't shy about gouging the public. People were fed up. So the city tried something new, a public market where farmers could sell directly to customers. On opening day, only a handful of farmers showed up, and they were mobbed. The produce sold out in minutes. By the end of the week, the market was already expanding. But the market wasn't built all at once. It grew in layers, literally. The upper level came first, then the lower levels, then the levels beneath those. Each addition was built on top of older storefronts, older walkways, older pieces of the city. That's why the market feels like a maze. It wasn't designed, it was accumulated. Immigrant families shaped the market from the beginning. Japanese farmers, Italian butchers, Scandinavian fishermen. The market became a crossroads of cultures, languages, and traditions. It wasn't always easy. Fires swept through more than once. The Great Depression hit hard, and during World War II, Japanese American farmers, who made up a huge portion of the market's vendors, were forced into internment camps. Their stalls sat empty, some never returned. By the 1960s, developers wanted to tear the market down and replace it with parking garages and office towers. But Seattle pushed back. A grassroots movement, the Friends of the Market, fought to save it. In 1971, voters approved an initiative to preserve the market permanently. And that's why it's still here. Today, Pike Place Market is a living time capsule, a place where the past and present overlap in ways you can feel as soon as you step inside. The old wooden floors creak under your feet, the neon signs glow the same way they did decades ago. The lower levels still hold shops that feel untouched by time. And beneath all that, the noise, the crowds, the postcard views, the market still carries the weight of everything that's happened here. Some of those stories are written down, others linger in the shadows. Pike Place Market's hauntings aren't loud or theatrical. They're woven into the building, into the stairwells, the old storefronts, the forgotten hallways, and the places that haven't changed much in decades. Some are tied to specific people. Others feel more like memories replaying themselves. All of them add to the market's sense of being alive long after closing. One of the more common or popular known hauntings is of Princess Angeline. She was a daughter of Chief Seattle, seen as a small, elderly woman in a red shawl. Gentle, quiet, a reminder, not a warning. There's also a woman in a red dress. Before sunrise, vendors sometimes catch a glimpse of a woman in a 1920s red dress, reflected in glass or polished metal. She never appears directly, only as a flicker of color or a silhouette behind someone who turns to find nothing there. Her presence feels like a memory looping quietly in the background. There's also a little girl in the market theater. Her footsteps are heard across the stage, props shifting, a child's giggle in an empty room, a small figure watching from the aisle. There's a young boy that is in the lower levels. He's heard running between storefronts after hours, quick footsteps, a darting shadow, the sense of someone peeking around a corner, playful but distant, like a child exploring a place he loved and never quite left. There's also a spirit of Frank Goodwin. He's kind of considered the market's guardian spirit. He was also one of the market's original developers. The tall male figure seen in the lower levels, sudden cold spots, the deep male voice whispering names, a protective spirit, not a threatening one. One shop owner, Maggie, described a moment when she felt a coldness wrap around her and heard her name whispered by a voice she recognized, Frank's. There's also the butcher's corridor. Behind the last remaining butcher shop, the old service hallway still holds the cold of the market's early years. Reports include footsteps that follow, their slow, heavy boots on concrete that step when you stop, that stop when you stop. A cold draft with intention, brushing past like someone in a chilled apron. A single knock, one firm tap from inside a sealed meat locker that's no longer used. A broad-shouldered silhouette, seen at the far end of the hallway, gone when looked at directly. Nothing malicious, just the market remembering the people who kept it running. There's also one called the lullaby singer, a soft, melodic humming heard in the upper levels or near Post Alley. A woman's voice singing a lullaby. Sound stops the moment someone tries to find the source. Also whispering in some of the corners of the market. Several shops report faint, indistinct whispers in the early morning. not words, just a cadence of conversation. Vendors call it the market waking up. The sound always stops when someone listens too closely. There's also some vanishing faces that are seen, figures that look too pale, too still, too out of place, seen for a moment in a crowd, then gone when you turn back, often tied to the market's early residents and workers. It's also a thief of Pike Place, a petty spirit said to tug at pockets, brush past people, or move small items. More folklore than fact, but part of the market's long memory. There's also some shadow figures in the down under, tall, fast moving shadows, figures slipping around corners, shapes reflected in glass cases, sudden cold drafts. The market's layers remembering themselves. There's also a shadow seen on one of the ramps going to the down under. On the ramp between levels, a tall shadow crosses from left to right in the early evening. It moves with purpose, like someone heading home after a long shift. No one has ever seen it approach or retreat, only cross. In the old bead shop, in the down under, a tall, thin shadow figure once seen moving across the back wall of the bead shop in the down under. A tall, thin shadow figure has been seen moving across the back wall of the old bead shop in the down under. The shop has since closed. New businesses have moved in and out, but the activity is still seen off and on. There's also an old elevator there. It descends on its own, doors opening, no one stepping out, no mechanical issues found. The man in an old duster coat. He's tall, silent, outdated clothing, seen walking the lower levels, gone when followed. Before it was a coffee shop, the space was storage. A forgotten little pocket of the market in Post Alley that sat untouched for years. Ghost Alley Espresso has heard whispers behind baristas, objects shifting, a figure reflected in the espresso machine, standing behind them when no one is there. Tenzing a Momo apothecary. Not documented per se, but a felt one. The moment you step over the threshold, the air shifts. Not frightening, not heavy, just aware, like the space is paying attention. There's also spirits of former residents, elderly figures near old apartment entrances, footsteps in hallways that no longer exist, doors opening or closing on their own, quiet, residual, and deeply tied to the market's past as a neighborhood. Walking through Pike Place Market after hours feels different from any other place in Seattle. During the day, the market is loud and crowded and overflowing with life. But at night, when the lights dim and the stalls are empty, the building feels older, closer, more honest. You start to notice the things you missed during the day, the way the floors creak under your feet, the way the air shifts when you move from one level to the next, the way the hallways seem to hold their breath. The market has seen more than a century of people pass through its doors. Farmers, fishermen, artists, shopkeepers, families, tourists, and the people who built their entire lives inside these walls. Some of these stories are written down, others aren't, but the building remembers them anyway. I've been walking through this market since I was a boy, and it's always felt a little magical to me, even now as an adult. In the quiet, it feels like the same place I grew up in wandering, just older, deeper, carrying more stories than I ever realized back then. And maybe that's why the market feels the way it does at night. Not haunted in a frightening way, just full. Full of memories, full of footsteps, full of the people who shaped it and the people who never really left. Some buildings faded when the lights go out. Pike Place Market doesn't. It settles, it breathes, and it remembers. Thanks for joining me on this after hours walk through Pike Place Market. It's a place I've known and loved since I was very young, and seeing it in the quiet reminds me why it's always felt alive in a way few places do. And this is just the beginning of season 2. Next time, next week, we're headed beneath the city and into the old storefronts and forgotten passageways of the city's underground. A place built on top of fire, loss, and the stories Seattle tried to leave behind, but didn't. Until then, thanks for listening. Stay curious, stay safe, and stay aware of what might be moving in the dark beneath your feet.